When did you get the nickname T-Rock? Where does
Man,
that come along?
yeah, it's just something I started to be called when I was a kid. I think I don't know if it wasn't like something on a hip hop front that fell into play. It was just something I feel like friends started to call me, and it found its way into being like my handle on social media and stuff like that from the beginning. And yeah, it was just sort of a common name. People would be like, "What up, T? What's going on, T-Rock?" And so it just kind of stuck, man.
Rock, you spell it Rawk. So I'm wondering, the single that you had later on, Rock Fist, is that spelled in honor of your nickname or is it kind of like a Easter egg?
No, it is, man, for sure. I had a funny thing I still do it with spelling. Spelling's like one of my geeky favorite things. I'm like love like spelling bee type stuff for some reason. I just love it. My daughter loves it too, which is really cool. But so just way into words, and I think I've always looked at there's certain words that just didn't look right to me. Kind of like, and other people probably just think it's like ridiculous, but like corn uses a K. I think that just looks right to me. You know what I
And
mean?
the R backwards.
Yeah, like that just looks right to me. So in the same way, and I love those guys, but like so the same way that they did that, it was like when Thousand Foot Krutch, when I felt like in my heart that was the right name for this thing. Um, when I was 17, I started TFK, and I just remember being like, yeah, it didn't look right with a C. So that's all it was to me. It was like on a spelling level, it just didn't look right. And so with rock, it was the same. It was like, I love rock and roll. There's just something about RAWK that worked for me. So that's just what it stuck with. And Rockfist, man, I've spoke about this before. You may know this, but it was that was actually a song that I had written, had this idea and kind of turned into a song that we were pitching to The Rock, the wrestler. It was supposed to be like a theme song for him. That's like what it was written for, and that was the hopes. And we had been in talks with the WW, trying to think if it was WWE yet. I guess it would have been from WWF, but and yeah, it was going. That was what we were going to do. It was going to be his theme song, and then about 2 weeks after that. Basically, yeah, he had released a statement saying that he was leaving wrestling, man, and going to acting. So I was like, man, just missed
That's
it,
my chance. No.
right? So we ended up putting it on the record, and yeah, it ended up being for a long time one of those songs that we could not play. But it wasn't originally created for the album. Yeah, it was a theme.
At 13, you start your music career as the Boogeyman. And from there, we move on to Oddball. So, can you talk a little bit about Oddball? So, this is your first band that, after a few years, transforms into Thousand Foot Krutch.
Yeah, it almost felt like two different things to me, but yeah, technically, I guess it did transform into that. So Oddball was I'd made a record when I was 13, like you said, and that was all hip hop. Then when I was 16, I started recording Oddball, and it was basically I wanted to make an album at that point in time, like it was a CD, and it was sort of when I realized that I really loved songwriting because there was it was hilarious, man. Like there was like a folk song, like handful of rock songs, some hip hop. It was like all over the map stylistically. And it wasn't very cohesive at all. But so the first half of it though was like rock and different variations of like that kind of music. Then there was 27 songs on it.
Yeah, I'd say you love songwriting if there's 27 songs.
I'm not saying they were all good songs, but and then there was like an intermission, man, where like literally like oh, and then it went into all hip hop for the second half. And yeah, it was hilarious, man. I learned a lot making that and was just paid for it while working, with McDonald's shift money. And it was a big learning curve, man, but it was an awesome process. And yeah, Neil worked with me at McDonald's. He drummed on it and on the rock stuff. And then I worked on the hip hop stuff with a friend of mine, Matt Hart, who's also an artist. His name's the Russian Futurist. And he was, yeah, a kid from town who made beats. And so we did that. And then I ended up starting Thousand Foot Krutch the year after that, man, when I was 17.
What opportunities presented themselves once you had that 27 song album? So it's essentially a business card that you can present to say, look, I'm talented. You should book me for these shows, or, you
Right.
should manage me, those kind of things.
I would say that I remember giving it like I would be the guy who was showing up at all the clubs to be like, "Hey man, check this out. You know, can we open for whoever you got coming through here?" I was doing that all the time. And to answer your question, yeah, it what I think the fruit of that was one show. I think we got one show as Oddball, and we played it maybe an hour away. I feel like it was like maybe in Camelford, Ontario or something. And it was awesome. It was a blast. Neil came and played that, and Dave Smith, the original TFK guitar player, and Tim Baxter, who was the original bassist from Peterborough. So yeah, we went and played this one show, but it wasn't like it like then the doors open, you know. It honestly was more for me. It was something that kind of taught me a lot, and it did start to kind of like I guess garnish a little following around town, just among friends and things like that. We had some songs to play that were original finally, and but it was yeah, it was after that. It was more when settling into like wanting to do TFK, it became a different thing. It just yeah, it's hard to explain, but I remember kind of I felt like God gave me a vision, man, for what felt like 20 years ahead and being like so that was sort of what I was walking towards from that moment forward. And you go through the transitions that any band does where, guys want to leave to everyone wants to be in a band in high school, it's like it feels cool. And then once push comes to shove and you're doing a little traveling and stuff, you find out kind of who really wants to do this. And so there was some amazing guys originally in the band, and some of them needed to leave for work or to get married, go to college. And yeah, eventually my an old friend of mine, Joel Briere, moved back to the area. I hadn't seen him in like over a decade, and he was a guitar player. And I remember being like, "Hey, man, you you still like music?" Because he was a really talented musician. He was like, "Yeah, yeah, dude." I was like, "Well, we're looking for a bass player, man. If you do you play bass?" And he's like, "I play guitar." And so, anyways, he ended up being the bassist. I remember we went and bought his first bass ever together, and he ended up just kind of uniquely. He's always been a gifted musician, but he had this really unique style that brought a cool like flavor to what we were doing that was like playing guitar on the bass. So yeah, that's and then Steve was I guess what was our third drummer, and we held some drum auditions, and we're blessed to meet Stevie. And yeah, he was from Hamilton, Ontario. Joel was from Brantford, Ontario, originally, and three boys just started rolling, man.
Man, 27 songs for one show. That's a tough conversion rate.
Yeah, well, by the time we started playing TFK shows, we kind of had our own TFK songs, from we did our first independent album pretty early on. So we would pretty much play those songs, I think, in a few covers. Um, but yeah, man, it was a good time. I just remember loving every second of like anything, it was a ton of hard work. Just like I had, in order to kind of be able to focus on this, I had just made it my full-time job. So I quit those other jobs, and the other guys still had other jobs that they did. And this just became my job. And so I was on the phone all day, just trying to drum up opportunities and things and meeting people and trying to sell albums and all that stuff. So it was a blast, man. Such a learning curve. And like I said, I kind of like learned from scratch. So I wouldn't trade it, man. I wouldn't trade a second of it.
You paid your dues to get to where you are today.
It was an honor, man, and a blessing for sure.
What's the story behind the band name?
Thousand Foot Krutch. I remember thinking about, what would be a great band name back then for this kind of conglomerate of music that felt like wasn't just rock, but it wasn't hip hop, but it was like it had a little funk. It was all of these things, and that was a name. Yeah, I always felt like that was sort of a God-given name, but it was just something I remember just kind of like praying about, like, what should this be? What is this called? And that was a name that just came to me, man. And to me, it sort of represented the support system that our faith is to us. And that was really that was really what that was about. I think other people kind of have drawn some conclusions of their own over time and stuff, and that's totally cool. But that's where it started for me, man.
Was it a conscious choice from the very start to be a positive, inspiring, uplifting band?
Yeah, but more so, less on a yeah. What's the best way to say it? It's basically like we were all Christian guys, And so to me, from back then till now, it's like our faith has always just been our lifestyle. It wasn't like a genre of music or something we had to try to do. It was just what we believed and who we were. And yeah, my faith's always been my lifestyle. So you imperfect, obviously, but like just you write songs and stories about life as you live it and as you experience it, no matter who we are and no matter what our worldview is. And so that's where it was coming from, man. And I did always feel just had a real heart just for people, who felt broken and were going through painful experiences and felt things really big and didn't always know how to process them. And there was a lot of stuff that, yeah, I remember feeling and experiencing growing up that I didn't know how to process and deal with, and some of it I'm learning how to process and deal with in my 40s, it's so that's, yeah, I think you write about what you know. And I've always definitely not trying to over spiritualize this, but just it's just the truth. I've always just for my own music just been like, man, God, what do you want to say and how do you want to say it? And before writing a song, and I think when you let God in the room when you're writing a song, it's so much bigger than me. It's so much bigger than us as a band. It's just that's where the impact can happen in your music that just kind of goes far beyond the music. And so that's sort of how a lot of those things were birthed, man, is me sort of bleeding onto a page and also just, yeah, trying to harness what I felt like when I was praying and experiencing life.
So in 1997, you guys released the album That's What People Do. You were able to sell over 5,000 copies independently.
Yeah, I guess so, man. Yeah, I kind of forgot that. But yeah, that's what people do was the first one. Yeah, absolutely.
You actually got radio play. So the first single, Rhyme Animal, this got picked up by a radio station in Peterborough.
Yeah, the Wolf had a show called, they were a classic rock station, but they had a show called The Alternate Route. And it was like, at the time, we thought it was like the cooler show. It was, they would play like heavier stuff, that wasn't classic rock, basically like modern rock. And so, yeah, they were good to us, man. I remember driving up there with the tape like probably two or three times and just handed it to whoever was in the parking lot, like, man, can you guys play this? And eventually they did. And it was really cool, man. I think the moment you first hear like something that you were a part of on the radio is just like a pretty cool core memory for anybody in music.
When you think back to that album, what thoughts, memories, emotions come back to you now? That kick-started the entire journey you've been on since then.
Yeah, I have great memories, man, of that album. I mean, I remember Christian Harvey he's still a Peterborough guy, amazing guy. And he was our drummer, and his parents let us jam in his bedroom. And so we used to do like a lot of the writing and TFK practices at his room and for that album. And it was great, man. It was such a fun time. I mean, I think it was a time of like experimenting as musicians. And, none of us were that great, but we had a lot of passion. And so you know, it was less about talent. And I think the percentage of talent was lower than the passion level. I guess put it that way. It was just like, and I felt very driven and we were all excited and passionate about the same thing. And so I think that came through in the music. And then when I listened back, I mean, my voice was terrible, man. Like it was like, I think it was because I always considered myself for a long time more of like an MC or like a lyric, like someone who rapped and rhymed first and foremost, and then sung second. That was just first and foremost what I felt the most comfortable doing. So it took me quite a while, man, and to be able to sing what I heard in my head. You know, I'd still do it, and live we had a blast, and it was fine. It's like, but I think like it was more, I definitely accredit like God's anointing on those things for the moments that happened and the awesome stuff that came through those situations. Because yeah, we worked hard and it was a blast. We left it all out there on the stage, man, and always have done that to this day. And it's what this band is about. And but yeah, it was, when I think back, it was quite a while before I could kind of sing what I heard, man. Like it was pretty, makes me cringe a little bit. But vocally, I mean, I'm just talking about myself. But the rest of it, yeah, it was so fun, dude. It was a great time. Good friends. It was so honest and pure. And, we were making music because we loved it and didn't really understand the business of music. It was just some guys making music and loved it. Doesn't get more pure than that.
We have a fan question. This is from Ronnie K. Johnston. Question is, what album or song are you most proud of?
Wow.
It's like a parent choosing their favorite child. I don't know if you can do that, but
Yeah, no, it totally is. I know. I don't know if I could do that either. I look at my life uh, journey as by albums because he put so much into this record that like it's sort of when I think of the album, I think of what happened during that time, and then I think of this tour and what happened. So when I think back, they each hold their own special place, man. I think for each of us, but in my heart. But I would say one of my favorite moments was the end is where we begin. I think we had finished with a record label we had been with for 10 years, with Tooth and Nail Records and EMI. And then they were awesome. We had a blast with them. Love those guys. And I love Brandon Ebel to this day, the president. But yeah, we finished that and we just, it was one of those things where we really felt like we were supposed to go independent. I remember at that stage of our career, we wanted help. We were ready to have some help, like manpower. We were just, we were exhausted and had put so much work in. And through the 4 albums we'd made there. And yeah, I just remember feeling like, man, we're excited to find a label team that can do this and help us partner with us. And I remember yeah, I remember praying about it and I felt God asked me to like for us to go independent. And it was a huge faith step, man. I remember being like, okay, I mean, we'll do it, but this is the opposite of of what we want right now. We ended up teaming up with the Feel Music and Tony over there, Potato, and partnered with him, and we started our own label on paper, like TFK Music Inc. and paid for everything and put our own music out through our own label and cut our own deals with Best Buy and Target and Walmart and all that stuff with the Fuel team, and it was great, man. It was a special time, like me, both musically and in a life level. Everybody was now married, and it was just I remember it was a special moment, man. I'll never forget because if you're blessed to have an audience in music and people who listen to your stuff and connect with it and that you connect with, you don't own that, no matter who you are, you don't own that and you can't control it. And so what going independent sort of removed the middleman of the record label completely. And none of our friends had done that at that point. It wasn't the popular thing to do yet, like it is very much nowadays. But like back then, 2010, 11, it wasn't. And so it was a huge, huge risk. And it was amazing to me. Just at first, it was terrifying. We were like, "Gosh, I don't know if people, are people going to show up? Like, it's just us and them now. If they don't show up, like, this is crazy." And man, the audience, just the TFK Army, I've always called them this. They showed up in such a big way, and I'll never forget it, man. It just my heart is so connected to all of them, and it was just beautiful, bro. It was such an awesome thing of just it was such an honor to get to walk with them like it felt like hand in hand. That's what it felt like. We were just actually walking together, and I still feel that way with the audience and about making music. But that was a special one, man.
that's awesome. So we're going to dive into that album a little bit later. Up first, we have Set It Off that you released in 2000. Is this album where you start to really feel momentum for the band?
Yeah, Set It Off. I think, yeah, our shows, we started getting a few more people to our shows at that point in Ontario and locally. And I think it was a time when we were always kind of doing hip hop and fusing rock and a little funk and just having fun with all of those elements. And during that album, I think, yeah, things started to kind of grow a little bit more so, I think, provincially, like in Canada, in our province of Ontario and locally. Slowly but surely, we were just working hard. And during the first half of that, during the second half of that, we ended up signing a record deal with a company in California. And we, through that, actually got picked up. Well, actually, before we did that, I should say, we got picked up by a booking agency in Nashville. And so I had been calling around to everyone just trying to find some ways to connect and get these shows, get new shows and create opportunities. And I remember this was such a cool, unique thing. There was a company called Third Coast Artist Agency, and now they're a part of William Morris Agency. But Mike Snyder was his name, and he had called up and ended up taking us on as a booking agency, which was a big risk for them as an American company. We were a young Canadian band who wasn't on a label, and we ended up playing like 300 shows a year for a long time, man. We were just like
He did
wear,
his job.
wearing out vans. Yeah, they were great. It was amazing and it allowed us to do what we felt called to, and allowed us to meet lots of amazing people. And yeah, that was a trip. That record deal was a really bad situation. Long story short, that didn't work out. They had signed everything over into their name. We didn't understand publishing and all of those things. So we let them fill out the paperwork, which was a huge no-no, but I wouldn't trade it because we learned a lot. I learned a ton about the music industry through that experience. And we ended up, thank God, but we somehow sold like 80,000 records out of our van. And so he took all the money from that, and we were able to just get out of the record deal without going all into the details, and just said, hey, man, we've never had any money. So if it means that much to you, that's yours. Just let us out of this record deal. And so we got out, and that's led us to, what kind of happened next with Phenomenon and stuff.
80,000 albums sold independently is crazy. That's a platinum album in Canada now. Like that's wild that you sold that many.
It was a crazy time, man. And we weren't thinking about it. We weren't sitting there being like, okay, you know, 7,000. And yeah, we weren't. It was just, we were just enjoying meeting people and playing and staying till everybody was gone, at the end of the night. It was awesome.
Was it selling that many albums independently that brought the attention of Tooth and Nail Records?
I'm sure that was part of it for sure. Yeah. Yeah. I think, and at the time after that, eventually we had some interest from Atlantic Records at the same time. And Brandon Ebel this is a crazy story that I know he wouldn't mind me telling, but this is how passionate he is. And he had saw something in us he liked during the Set It Off record, and had tried to call. I'm not kidding you. He called me every single day for a year to try to get us to fly down there to sign the band. And I remember at the time, and this is zero disrespect. I love him. I love the label, and they had a lot of great bands like MXPX and a bunch of great bands back then. But they at the time they were. It seemed like they had been signing like 20 bands at a time and just kind of throwing everything at the wall, and like one or two would stick and the rest, the production quality wasn't the best. And I just, that's how I felt anyways at the time. And I remember saying to him, like, man, we're just not interested, man. I really appreciate it. And then eventually we said, you know what? All right, we'll fly down and hang, and, let's hear what he has to say. And so we did. And I remember, yeah, Atlantic had success with POD at the time, and they were interested in us as well. And on paper, that was a much bigger team and a major label and all those things. The Tooth and Nail was a great label, but more of an indie major, and was a faith-based label. And so we weren't sure on that one. We thought we knew what we should do. And then I remember flying down there, and we met with them and heard them out. And just our hearts just connected, man. And it felt like, you know what, this is where we're supposed to be. So we had a great run with them, man. And Phenomenon came after that. We actually, without going into it, brother, we actually signed though with, I had another band called FM Static that was total rock pop music, and Steve, our drummer from TFK, and I did that, and we signed a deal with Tooth and Nail first with FM Static actually, and then with TFK, and so we recorded both of those first band's albums back to back in Seattle. Hilarious.
That's so crazy. Yeah, I was gonna later on. I'm gonna bring up FM Static, and I thought it was reverse. Like, oh, the success of Thousand Foot Krutch, the label must have been like, is there anything else we can record here?
Yeah.
I had it all wrong. But so around the cycle of that album, so we're still talking about Set It Off here. So you guys ended up touring with a bunch of great bands: Econoline Crush, Trouble Charger, Tea Party, Matthew Good, Gob, Sum 41, as well as Finger 11. And I have some kind words sent in from Rich Bedeau, who played drums on 4 of Finger 11's most iconic albums. And this is what Rich had to say. He says, What a great honor it is to offer up a few words and thoughts about my pal Trevor. He's a true force of nature. Before I even begin to talk about the music stuff, Trevor shows the man he truly is by his commitment and love he puts into his family. Being a present and unshakable father and husband has always come first to Trevor. His family is everything to him, and I see and hear it in every single conversation and text I've ever had with him. He has taught me that before you can be out there on the road doing this music stuff, you have to be grounded back to God, and your children or all the other stuff goes away and doesn't mean a damn thing, anyways. Before everything else in life, Trevor is a father and a husband, and that is why I love the man. Me and Trevor have both looked into darkness and found ourselves lost in it in the past, and we both felt the loving hands of God reach out to us. We held on tight for dear life. Now I look to guys like Trevor when I'm feeling down, or maybe even feel that same darkness creeping in, because he oozes positivity and spirituality, and he's always there. I've built a strong and intimate relationship with God over the years, thanks to a small number of friends out there who have helped show me the way. Trev is one of those friends. Musically, Trevor has had such a long and successful journey, and it's only just the beginning for him. As a singer, as a songwriter, as a producer, as a musician, he's constantly breaking down walls, and he does the unexpected. He's fearless. He pushes himself and takes risks, but is always in service of the song. The song always comes first for Trevor. When I say it's only just the beginning for him, it's because I know. And I can't wait for the rest of the world to hear what I've heard. Get ready. I can only hope I'm able to grace the stage with the likes of a Trevor one day. Whatever happens next, I'm his biggest fan, and I absolutely love him to bits. God bless you, buddy. Rich Beto.
Wow. Man, that means the world to me. That's incredible. I don't even know what to say. Rich, Rich has been, one of my favorite, was our whole band's favorite rock drummer for most of my career. I mean, he still to this day, he's, one of my favorite rock drummers, period, man. He's just a force musically. And most of my career, I didn't know him as a human, and then we got connected through the years, and just yeah, in the last handful of years, have got to know each other a lot better. And he's the best, man. I love him as a person, as a guy, as a friend, he's an awesome dad and an incredible man, and that means the world to me, man. Thanks.
He's one of those rare drummers that has the ability to create hooks with his drums. And also when you see them live, he's one of those drummers that you can't look away. Sometimes the drummer's kind of hidden in the back. With
Yeah,
him, it's like the showmanship and the theatrics, yet he's still playing the drums perfectly. And you're looking around, and once you see him, you're just stuck watching him for the whole concert.
yeah, I could watch him for a whole show. Yeah, I would be extremely honored if I got to play with Rich Bedell at some point, for
Yeah,
sure.
man, you guys would make an awesome super group if you played together at some point.
He's amazing. Well, thank you for that, brother.
In 2003, you guys released Phenomenon. We've talked a little bit about it. So this is the first album with Tooth and Nail. There's four singles: Phenomenon, Rockfist, Bounce, and This Is a Call. Phenomenon and Rockfist both go to #1 on christianrock.net. What did it mean to you to have, we talked about earlier, you got a little bit of local radio play, and it's one thing to hear your song on radio for the first time. That's super meaningful. But what does it mean to you when you get steady radio play and you're getting that support at radio?
I mean, man, it was incredible. It was something we never really had before, to that extent. And so to have people to have help, from people at a label who who were great at what they did, and we learned a lot from those guys. And there was definitely it took a village to roll things out there, and that label was great at it. I think, yeah, looking back there when it comes to radio, I mean, yeah, that was and still is, such a big part of it, man. And you always felt, I remember just always feeling so blessed and honored and appreciating every single ad that we would get, Um, yeah, it still means a ton, but I remember then, personally calling every one of the stations and just being like, guys, like, thank you, this is this is incredible. So yeah, those were amazing times, man, for sure. We were kind of figuring out too, finding our own voice, I think, in what we did. We had come through a scene where rap rock became a real big moment in music for a while there, through bands like Korn and Limp Bizkit and stuff like that. And love both of those bands. But for it became, even though we had been making kind of using rock and rap for a long time, once that really hit, people were like, "Oh, so you're trying to do the Limp Bizkit thing," and we always loved those dudes, man. But like, incredible band. But it was, yeah, that's. But we were just trying to be us, It still felt very authentic to us. So Phenomenon was a record where I remember just, and it was like it felt organically like we were like, you know what, let's dive a little further into experiment, just being creative and having fun in the rock lane. Let's dive a little bit more to the rock side. There was still lots of, I think, hip hop influence on that record, like percussiveness musically and the grooves and percussive vocals and things, but less actual sort of direct hip hop influence. I think in that one was intentional to just kind of be like, you know what, let's explore this more.
And this album was produced by the band as well as Aaron Sprinkle. So he worked with Amberlynn, Newfound Glory, Story of the Year.
Yeah.
How did you guys connect? And he ended up being kind of like a lifetime partner with you guys.
Yeah, Aaron, man, it was such an awesome experience to meet Aaron. To this day, we became kind of longtime collaborators, him and I. He had produced like over 200 records at the time, and I remember just being amazed by this guy. And I feel like as a band too, every producer you get a chance to work with, I would encourage any young bands out there, but just like, man, soak it in, see how they do stuff, see how they think, and every one of us as producers is different, and so everyone that I got to sit under, I got to see how they did it, and you get to, you can learn from them. There's a lot that we can all learn from them, and yeah, I really enjoyed doing that with Aaron. He was someone, there are few times in your career that you meet someone where you have such a chemistry that you can kind of finish each other's musical sentences, and he was one of those people for me. So we stuck together through FM Static albums, a bunch of those, through a bunch of TFK and some other bands that I worked with along the way. So he's an incredible talent and just an amazing human.
You get your first Juno nomination. This is for Contemporary Christian Gospel Album of the Year. It's crazy. Starting with this album, you basically every album got nominated for a Juno after that. This first one, what does that first Juno nomination mean to you? This is Canada's Grammys. This is your country acknowledging your hard work, your talent,
Yeah.
and your music.
It meant a lot to us, man, for sure. I think that was, as a Canadian, just growing up listening, and by this time realizing that like the Canadian music scene was a really special thing, that there were bands that we grew up and loved who our American friends had never even heard of. It was like, man, so it was one of those things where, yeah, it meant a ton to us. And the craziest part about that is, man, we never actually got to attend the Junos to this day. I've never been. We were always playing so many shows that we just could never be there. And so it was such a big honor. And I remember, yeah, it was kind of heartbreaking that we weren't able to attend those. But big shout out to the Junos, man, and love what they're doing for Canadian music.
We have a fan question. This is from Dva
Mm.
Seljaka. And the question is, can you share the story behind my favorite song, I Climb?
Wow. Okay, you're taking me back.
Way
Yeah,
back playback.
yeah, man, absolutely. I Climb was thinking back. I remember I Climb was a song that I remember came to me. I was actually in our hotel room in Seattle, Washington, and working on that album when that idea kind of came to fruition. And I had some close friends and experiences in my life that had kind of shaped what that song ended up being about. And it was, that song was about some abusive experiences that some friends close to me had experienced in their home growing up. And it was about the idea of, you know, home not being a safe place for everyone, you know. For some of us, it really was, and for some of us, it really wasn't. And yeah, that song kind of touches on that and some of the emotions that go along with that, and some of that traumatic feeling, and just yeah, it touches on that sort of painful experience.
In 2005, you guys released the album The Art of Breaking, four singles: Absolute Move, The Art of Breaking, and Breathe You In. So I was 20 years old when this album came out. And even back then, every Friday, I would check the Billboard charts to see what albums are on the charts, what singles are on the charts. And I remember looking at the Billboard mainstream rock charts, and there's this band, Thousand Foot Krutch, number 16 with the song Move. I'm like, okay, well, what is this song? Why are they on the charts? And I check it out, and I love that song, and that's where I became a fan. So this album, this song, Move, and
Cool.
this was produced by Arnold Lanni, who's one of Canada's great producers. He's done the diamond selling album here from Our Lady Peace, Clumsy. He's done Finger 11 albums. Last interview, I had Jeff Stinko from Simple Plan. He did their debut album that sold 4 million copies. What can you say about working with Arnold Lanni?
Man, Arn is such a beauty. I love him so much, man. That was he was another one of those moments in my life where just uh, I was kind of amazed by him and the chemistry that we developed musically, and we became really close friends. But just musically, it was another one of those people. Very few in your life that you come across that have that sort of chemistry or connectivity together, and we just had a real flow. And so it was amazing working with Arn. Learned a lot from him. Learned a lot about finding my own voice, as a vocalist even, and who I was within that, and learned, he pushed me as a songwriter, which was really great and a blast. I had just got married, and so I was like newly married, and I remember being in this. He would say in the studio. I remember him being like, "Go home tonight, and I want you to try to flesh out three ideas and just power through it, see what comes out, and just document it." And he's like, I think you can do this. And I was like, okay, that sounds like the funnest challenge ever. So I went home, and I remember my recording studio at that point in time was in a closet where like we had clothes like on either side of my face, basically. My wife and I both shared this little closet, and I was like this little laptop. And I remember, yeah, having an acoustic and flushing out some ideas, and basically what came out was the body of the song for Breathe You In, which was off that record, for Hurt, which was off that record, and one other song that I feel like it might have been Make Me a Believer. But yeah, that was an incredible experience. But we were big fans as Canadians and as rock fans of Finger 11 and Our Lady Peace, obviously, and I love Simple Plan as well on a pop rock level, and so big fans of Arn's before we even worked with him, and it was great. He thinks differently, man. He's not afraid to take time. A lot of producers or experiences we had people, I would be writing these songs on the road, and then we would get together, kind of pick what we wanted to put on an album together, and then get in there, and they'd be like, "All right, we got 6 weeks. Let's bat this thing out, or 4 weeks, or if you're lucky, 8." And this was with Arn. I remember the whole band was in there for during the pre-production phase of the songs with Arn, and then outside of a week or a week and a half each for Joel and Steve, it was just me and Arn there. And I remember we were in his studio in Toronto for months, and then I went out to his California studio where he actually lives now, and him and I were out there for at least 4 months, like just working away and trying lots of stuff. And I met Phil X, an incredible close friend of mine, but incredible world-renowned guitarist and guy from Toronto, Canada, another Canadian boy. But I met him through Arnold, and he played guitars on that record. That's how I
So
met Phil.
you mentioned the song Hurt. So another guest on the album, Adam Gonche of 3 Days Grace, makes an appearance on Hurt and Go. How did he become a part of that project as well?
Yeah, man. So, kind of those guys, Neil was from Peterborough, but Adam and the crew in 3 Days Grace were from Norwood, Ontario, just outside of Peterborough. And so we had always known each other and played a bunch of shows together. And back when I was booking early TFK shows, I would always book 3 Days Grace as the direct support. Like, they were just my favorite band, and we loved those guys. And so I was trying to help them get shows too. And so we would just always play shows together. And so we knew each other really well. And through that, I remember, yeah, just asking. if Ad would be open to coming in and singing something. And I think originally I was gonna see if he could sing a part in um, what song was it? Oh, Hand Grenade, in the chorus of Hand Grenade. And then I think something about it just I think maybe the register wasn't right, or the key wasn't right for him, or something wasn't right. So that was like, well, man, I got you in here. We got to do something. So he ended up being gracious enough to do a couple parts that were some really cool, prominent sort of background vocal parts that we blended in. Actually, one of them was a lead vocal for sure on a song called "Go," and he to this day, Adam, has I think one of the most iconic and one of my favorite modern rock voices. And yeah, big fan of him just as a human as well. But yep, that was the first time we ever worked together on like a TFK thing with Adam singing. Yeah.
I have a funny early 3 days grace story. So when I was 15, I did a road trip with my parents from Ottawa to Toronto for Canadian Music Week.
Oh,
And I went to see Mudvayne. And
what?
so I'm there to see Mudvayne. And then there's an opening band that no one had heard of. And it was
Yeah.
this little three piece, and it was 3 days grace. So there was still a three piece.
Yeah.
And I think it was 3 months later, they drop I Hate Everything About You, and they've never looked back. So I saw them as a three piece, still unknown. And a few months later, I was like, wait, that's the band I just saw a few months ago. And that song goes to number one. And now, 25 years later, their new singles have gone to number one to show the longevity there.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, that was I remember that moment for sure when they were still three. And yep, absolutely, man. Great band.
I went back and I listened to the entire Thousand Foot Krutch and FM Static discographies
Oh,
just to make sure I know what's going on. And one thing that's apparent is you have some incredible harmonies throughout the discography. Has
man.
hearing and singing harmonies always come easy to you, or is that something you've had to work on?
You know what? It hasn't. Yeah, I had to work on it. It hasn't come. Even singing for me is, it's something I've always had to work at. I was saying, I think mentioning this earlier, but it was probably like 2009 or something. Like I'd been doing it a while when I finally got to a point where I could sing what was in my head, and we had albums out by then of me not being able to. So, yeah, it's always been something I've had to work at, man. And I take pride in that in a good way. Just that, like, I think there's always lots to learn, in anything that we do in life. And I still try to push myself to this day. And there's never a moment where it feels like, all right, I've arrived. So yeah, I love trying to stretch myself, man. And that was yeah another one of those moments. Lead melodies and song melodies melodically flow pretty naturally through me. Harmonies, not as much. It's something I have to really think about. And kind of like the fact that like I play by ear and I don't always know what I'm playing. Harmonies are sort of the same for me. Like I think if someone who was really deep in music theory took a look at a bunch of those harmonies on a sheet music, they'd be like, "Wait, this isn't right. Like, what's going on here, man?" But it sounds right to me. So, thank you, man. That means a lot.
So we have a funny fan question. This is from Svetla Nareshnina. I definitely got that name perfect. So this is the question. What's the name of the black mini dog that's always almost invisible in your studio? She looks like a ninja. She's a master of disguise. That's from Svetla.
She is back there, just blending in masterfully.
Where, on the couch?
Yeah, she's back. She's back there. Lady. See? Yeah,
That's
her name
funny. Until there was movement, we couldn't see an animal.
she does. She hangs out with me. It's okay. Her name is Lady. She is like a 10-pound Brussels Griffon. My wife and I kind of fell in love with this breed of dog. It's like a little bearded lady. She's awesome.
That's awesome. So in 2007, you guys released the album The Flame in All of Us, four
Yeah.
more singles. What Do We Know? Falls Apart, The Flame in All of Us, Favorite Disease. This was produced by Ken Andrews of Failure.
Mhm.
And man, this guy's worked with everybody. And I have a confession. So I wasn't super familiar with the band Failure until a couple of years ago. I have a series on the podcast called My Five Favorite Albums, where returning guests share their five favorite albums.
Oh, okay.
One of the guests, one of his favorite albums was Fantastic Planet from Failure. So I really sunk my teeth into that. And that's like a groundbreaking album and a very influential album. So I became a fan of the band just a couple of years ago. How did you end up working with him? And also, did you see that they just released a documentary in the last few months?
I did see that. I have not seen it yet, but I was excited to see that, man. Much like yourself, honestly, when I had not heard of Failure until we started working with Ken. And then I kind of went back because the more people I talked to, I was like, man, a lot of people love this band. And yeah, really like incredible stuff, man. But yeah, Ken was a crazy talented guy who he was a different flavor for us. We had initially been looking at doing that record with Joey Moy, who
Of
at the
Nickelback fame?
yeah, he was producing all the Nickelback stuff at the time. And yeah, at we had booked time to do it with Joey. And at like the 11th hour that yeah, things got messed up there, and so we had to find something else. And yeah, so we looked through a big list of people, and I remember being like, "Oh man, this guy's worked with Chris Cornell and like some incredible bands." And so we were like, "Well, it's a long shot, but let's see if we could do it." Because as a band, you book off the time to record a record so that you don't tour during that time. But then if the producer falls through, you still only have this time, right? Like or else you have to take more time off touring. So we were like, man, let's see if he can do it. And Ken, thank God he was available and super talented guy. We did it, the record out at the Firehouse Studio in Pasadena with him. And it was actually like an old firehouse. It had a fire pole you could slide down. And yeah, it was cool, man. He was a totally different flavor for us. And I think he brought something really cool to that record.
Can you share the idea behind the album title? So again, The Flame in All of Us. That has a special meaning, I believe.
Yeah, that was, that record to me, that term in itself, I think it's been a bit of a common thread, for this band and just as someone, whose faith is important to them. And I'm a big follower of Jesus, man. I love Jesus and I love people and I love music. And so that has always music and faith in my life have always just felt like this fire inside. It's felt like this burning in a good way, just this like something that was like ready to combust. And I think both musically and just life wise, that's just how I've always felt. And so that to me, um, yeah, that kind of represented that. It represented sort of life on a faith level and also music and just sort of what felt like it was flowing through my veins.
There's certain songs in the discography where you really push your voice, whether it's hitting crazy high notes, whether it's screaming, whether it's something very guttural. We have a lot of young musicians that listen to the podcast. If we have singers that want some advice on how to either scream or at least really project their voice safely, any
Yeah,
advice that you can give them?
yeah, man. It was a long time before I learned this, but like just the notion that our vocal cords are a muscle, just like when we train, if you train in the gym, whether your biceps or your pecs or whatever, it's like it's a muscle just like those. So it had never, for probably the first 10 years I was singing it, I just didn't know that. So I would, I'd lose my voice and all of those things quite often. And so the biggest thing, a couple tips that I've learned along the way is that pizza or tomato sauce, period, before bed, which usually comes in the form of pizza, is a huge no-no because it sits in your throat and it's so acidic that it just burns and it'll cause massive heartburn, which also just burns your vocal cords. And sleep. I feel like for many years of this band, I don't even think we did sleep. You know what I mean? But it's for a vocalist, especially, is just so key, man. It's so key to having like strength in your voice and your body to be able to push that and use that muscle. And yeah, I would recommend. Well, if you're like me and you don't just naturally sing like a bird and have this incredible voice right out of the box. Some people do. I have friends who just are incredible singers first thing in the morning all day and never warm up, and that's phenomenal. That's a giant gift. If you have that, good for you. But if you don't and you're like me, I would recommend warming up, man. I can see when you're younger, you're like, it's a pain. I don't want to warm up. Trust me, you want to warm up. It's something that your voice will last longer if you want to play music for your life. You got to maintain this muscle. And I've had friends who've literally lost their voice and had to stop their entire career, just had to stop. So take care of it, man. It's not something you want to think about when you're young, but it's something you should.
We have a fan question from Jachin Hendricks. Can you share some stories about guitarist Phil X in the studio?
Yeah, man, what a legend. Phil is just insane. He is feels a little bit older than me, and he is like the youngest person. You know how like you meet someone and you're like, oh man, that person's really an old soul. That's really cool. They're such a young person, but they have this maturity. He is this like amazing. He has this childlike. He's the opposite. Not he's mature. I don't mean that, but he's like he has this childlike excitement and energy level to him that like to me he's like a young soul. He's the opposite of that. And it's the coolest example of it. Even if he leaves you a phone message, he's like, "Rah, what's going on, brother?" Like he's just on 11, and it's the best thing. It's so infectious. And him and I got really close on the Art of Breaking record and have just stayed really good friends since then. But man, I mean, that guy, he is hands down one of the best guitarists in the entire world, like actually. And the stuff I remember a couple times on the Art of Breaking. There was one time when Arn and I gave him like 8 bars to be like, you know what? We want to bring back the guitar solo. We want to be a part of the bands that are trying to bring that back. We love that in rock. And so, dude, there's your plate. Just friggin' go for it. And what would you do? And I remember what he did was what you hear on that song. And I don't know anyone to this day that could play that solo. It's just like it's Phil in audio form. The guy is just like a phenom. I think he's a savant and incredible talent, but like much more importantly, he's just an awesome friend, an amazing guy. He's a great dad and has a couple great kids and an awesome wife. So Canadian boy living in LA, kicking butt with Bon Jovi. Amazing.
In 2009, you guys released the album Welcome to the Masquerade. There's 6 more singles. This was mixed by Randy Staub, who is
Yeah, man.
famous for mixing Metallica's Black Album, which is one of the best sounding albums ever. It sold 32 million copies. It's this iconic album. How does he become a part of this, and how excited are you knowing your stuff is going to sound that good?
Yeah, dude, we were stoked, man. I think he was someone that we definitely had wanted to work with for a while. And, guys like him, especially then, were just, it was really hard to get them booked. They were so busy, man. So we were very fortunate to get Randy on that record. And he brought, we've worked with some incredible mix engineers over the years, and it's an art form all in itself and one I really respect and love. And he, some mix engineers bring something fresh to what you've already done. Like you essentially are handing them a finished record, and then they mix it, which just puts everything where it needs to sit, and it can make or break an album. And um, there's a good mix, there's an incredible mix, there's someone who's good at that, and then there's something else where there's an artistry to it where they add a little something that adds to what you're doing beyond just an incredible mix. And I felt like I'm probably not explaining that very well, but that's what it felt like to me. And he brought something to that album, and he really cared about it, man. Like there was one song called to this day I don't know if I've had a mix engineer do this, but there was a song called Watching Over Me. There's a song called Watching Over Me on that. And he was so into this record. He was like, guys, I love this. Like he messaged, emailed and said, hey, I feel like in this bridge, this chorus should come back like this instead of like this. And we ended up making like a couple switches to the actual song arrangement because he was like, what about this? And we were like, this is insane, man. Like, thank you. So yeah, he was amazing. Really, really a great experience there. And that's the only time we got to work with Randy. But yeah, rock legend, man.
A few of the songs on this album end up in different mediums like video games and movies, and some, Detroit Red Wings are playing songs at the games live. What was it like for you to experience your music in those different mediums, and how important is it for a band for exposure to have music in different mediums like that?
Man, it was incredible. I think it's really important, man. I think that, those each of those things in and of itself have a great synergy with music if it's done right, like film and TV and video games. And um that I've always been really passionate about that side of things as well, just as a film fan and as a music fan. So it's sometimes I've consciously written thinking of that. I do think of songs a lot of times like I think of a movie. But it can be really important, man. And that was, this. I think that organically for us, that record was the beginning of what became like a really cool relationship with professional sports and extreme sports and just film and TV in general. Being able to see those things. We had seen it with Rockfist a bit, and we had seen it with Move in the UFC world and in a couple different facets, but. Yeah, it was really cool to see that, man. What an honor. And to get to play, that sort of opened the door for us to play more professional sporting events. And yeah, so cool. I mean, it's bigger than music at that point, and each of those things complement each other in a way that I love.
So I saw you guys live on the tour supporting that album. So I moved to the GTA for 11 years, starting in 2010. And I took advantage of being in the GTA where now we have access to more bands than usually go to Ottawa, anyways. So
Sure.
I get there in 2010, and October 15th, 2010, I saw you guys play at the Queensway Cathedral on the outskirts of Toronto. I think it's a little more Etobicoke area. And
Yeah.
I remember, I was a fan of you guys because of the song Move and from the album that's on. And I remember buying the ticket. I'm like, oh, this is at a church. Like, you think of specific venues in Toronto, and I'm like, oh, that's a different venue. So I don't know what to
Good,
expect.
good.
And
Yeah.
I go to see this band at this church, and I get there, and there's like thousands of people. I couldn't believe it. There's like 2 or 3 thousand people. I was like, I didn't know this is possible.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's so cool, man. I remember that show, and because that was a place we ended up playing several times, but that was a first for us too, man. And I think, being Christian guys, and we've always made music for everyone, but we've always sort of played both marketplaces, like whoever would have us. And so it was always, just as much an honor to play in a cool church as it was to play, in a great rock club like House of Blues or whatever. So we did more of that. I think the first decade of the band, played both like clubs and churches and stuff. And then through the years, it became. I think it wasn't a conscious choice. It's just the way things sort of evolved. But we ended up playing more mainstream shows, or the mainstream marketplace, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, that was awesome, man. That's so funny. That was a unique show for sure, and that place in itself.
2012, you guys released the album The End Is Where We Begin. 4 more singles. So this is the album that your first album you released independently.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
how amazing is it that you release an independent album and it debuts in the top 15 on the Billboard Top 200 albums in the US? That's the main chart. And it debuted at #1 on the Billboard charts for the hard rock albums, for the Christian albums. That must have been extra sweet because, man, even bands on major label albums don't chart that high on those charts.
That was crazy, man. I mean, that was the TFK Army all day long, and I give God the glory for that, man. It was one of those things that, yeah, it was just blew us away, man. You're kind of like, wow, okay, how did this happen? And yeah, it was inspiring. I think that just kind of kept fueling the fire of like, you know what? Let's keep walking together. Like, why would we do this any other way? It's such an honor, and they inspired us, man. The audience, big time.
So the singles War of Change and Courtesy Call were certified gold and platinum in the US. That's 500,000 and 1 million copies sold. Man, do you remember receiving the phone call that they got certified gold and platinum? That's such a milestone.
Thank you, man. I know it's yeah, it's a huge blessing. I know I don't. I never actually got a phone call about that. It's so funny. This is something that because we were independent,
I
it
guess there's
worked.
nobody to call you.
Yeah,
You got to call it
nobody.
yourself.
Exactly. So I was on the phone with someone who is on the admin side of what we do, who was like, Oh, hey, by the way, we have something to send you guys. There's a couple plaques here, and I was like, oh yeah, like for what? And and they told us that this was like, yeah, it was shortly after, I guess. It might have even been a couple months after it happened, and I was like, oh, crazy. Thanks, man. So yeah, it was just it ended up it was like hearing it from just someone who had heard way before us. So it was funny.
Courtesy Call has 416 million plays on Spotify. Like, how do you even process those numbers? I mean, it doesn't even make sense. Like, you look at it and it looks like an error, like they added an extra number by accident.
Right? No, yeah, I don't know if you do process that, man. Just like extremely grateful. That was one of those moments where like song-wise, I remember we've been talking about the fusion of different styles of music and stuff, and there was something just felt so I don't know, inspiring to me about the idea of taking the feel of like something in the club, a club sort of song, and mixing hard rock with it. And there's something about that that's always felt enticing to me and just felt like something cool about that. And that's something I to this day, I still like love taking a stab at different things that have those elements involved. And that one, yeah, that was one of those moments that it was a sort of flushed it all out, and it felt like it brought those two elements together. And you're like, I don't know, and people are either gonna like it or hate it. I don't. It's different, you know. And I loved it, and it was really amazing to just kind of see, yeah, man, to see the response, and that's something that's grown over time too. Like that wasn't like it was received well, which was awesome, but that's been one of those moments that's continued to grow to this day, and it's kind of yeah, out of it's bigger than us, man. It's definitely out of our hands, but it was fun to watch that happening, man. And I think the world of YouTube sort of blowing up and TikTok and all of those things since then has really that song keeps getting like a second life and then a third life and then a fourth, and it's been yeah, man. What a cool blessing to watch that happen.
Every year you post the updated Spotify numbers for that year. And
Right.
every time I see that, the numbers are so absurd. It's like 215 million plays just the last year. And those numbers would be crazy for, any band, but for you where you haven't put out a new Thousand Foot Krutch album in, I don't know, 9 years or something, to have 215 million plays in every year, essentially. Like, I can't even grasp these numbers.
That's God stuff, man. I honestly, again, just the audience has been such an incredible part of this, every bit as part of it as we have. And I think I mean, that's something that's blown us away too, man. It's been 2017 was the last we released something that was Untraveled Roads was the live album. And so yeah, it's been a minute, man. And I've been working on a ton of new music since then, and I feel like I have this hilarious like Tupac amount of new music just sitting on hard drives.
Now you just have to go to prison to release the first one if you
Yeah,
if you want to follow his plan to success.
yeah, that might be where that plan stops. But but yeah, it's been a minute, and it's been, man, so humbling and crazy for us to see that, continuing to grow each year. It's just, it defies logic and it defies what makes sense. That wasn't some brilliant strategy that we had. That was, man, just that was the audience and God stuff, man.
We have a fan question from Josiah Seckel. The question is, how would you say your faith has changed over the years and its influence on you and your music?
Cool question, man. My faith hasn't changed over the years. I feel like there's been lots of moments, coming off of the road for the first time, um, where I've been shaken as a person, just life stuff, and just, realizing that after a life of like 100 miles an hour and never really taking a break until we came off the road, just that, yeah, we need maintenance, just as people on a health level and emotionally, physically, spiritually. And so my faith has never been shaken, but I feel like in my 30s and 40s, I've learned a lot of stuff about life and about our core emotions and self-care and just how to process things, how to grieve things that I've never, yeah, I wish I would have learned sooner. Um, so it's been a blessing to learn some of those things and learn how to kind of handle some of the painful life experiences that we go through um, in a healthy way, be able to cope with those things and learning how to manage big feelings and traumatic moments and all of those things, and no one really, uh, I don't know, I feel like we came generally from a generation who didn't really learn that stuff because a lot of our parents weren't taught it, and so um, it's been a blessing to learn those things, as I get older. And so I think those things have all played itself into my faith journey as well. Um, I know in the darkest moments of my life that God's been there with me and that I'm never alone. Um, but yeah, there's been lots of tough and painful moments in there as well, man, where there's been moments where I was struggling with stuff and I couldn't, I was trying to sort of figure out like how can I believe that God is enough, more than enough, and that He's capable of all this, and yet be struggling with this thing. And yeah, so I had to kind of reconcile some of those things, just figuring out that like in those moments, in my darkest moments, that I wasn't broken, I was just hurt, and God's helped bring some healing to those situations, and through just being able to ask for help in those moments and in my life and learning from some incredible people that God's put in my life that have taught me a lot of great things and some healthier ways to live.
So we're going to speed through the next few albums just to make sure there's time for fan questions, for
Cool.
a little FM static, for the upcoming music. So 2014, you released the album Oxygen Inhale. 2016, you released the album Exhale. And we have two fan questions. So the first one is, if you were not a singer, what would you be? And what's the best part of your music career?
What's okay? Two-part question. I think that I would probably be the same answer. I would be, those are the other interests. Really, music has been everything in my life. So I haven't really done anything else. And so when I think of other interests, it's always been probably somewhere in that like marine biology, study sharks world, or like I was saying, or in the storm chaser realm of things, as crazy as that sounds. So and then what was the other question? What was my favorite?
What's the best part of your music career?
Man, honestly, and I'm not just saying this. This is like the juice for me, and what I miss about not being on the road is the people. Just is connecting with people, man, with the audience, and sharing stories, getting to hear them share stories, and then getting to share stories with them, and just connecting as people who love music and who it speaks to our souls, all of us. And so getting to connect on that level is, yeah, I miss that element of it.
So in 2017, you guys enter an indefinite hiatus. There's a fan question from Blaze Ebby. Question is, the last time you guys played a live show, did you know at that time it would be the last Thousand Foot Krutch show for many years?
I would say yes. At that point in time, we did know. Long, a long answer short is that I remember not being able to see the next record for the first time in my life. And I'd always been able to see it. And so that really troubled me. I remember it was just like this dark cloud of urgency in front of my face. I felt like I couldn't see the next record, and that made things feel really weird. And so it occurred to me that like that vision that I had seen at the beginning of what I sensed was like a 20-year vision, like we were there, and it just never occurred to me. It's like, wow, I feel like we blinked, and so yeah, I said to the guys, like, can we be intentional to just pray about like what the next 20 look like, And so we did that, and it was probably about a month of that where playing shows and doing our stuff, but just man, I felt really something was missing. And I didn't know. It's like I woke up and someone had surgically removed something. And I was like, what is going on? And so I remember being so frustrated with God, with life, with just being like, what is going on, man? I don't get this. I can't, I feel like I can't even, look over top of this thing in front of me right now and just live a normal day until this is figured out. And uh, yeah, I felt God speak to me and just say that, this assignment is done and I have a new assignment. And so, kind of that we had dug these trenches across the world together and that he was going to continue to use those. But he had a new assignment. So, I felt such a peace about that, guys. Like that's how I knew it was him. It's been my whole life. So that's not something I would ever choose to do, you know. And so I just talked to the guys and individually, and we all felt unified on that it was time to just it was for, for a season. We weren't sure what that meant. So we set the band down, and we had families and felt we were supposed to be here, and didn't want to miss those moments and wanted to be there for our families. So that's what we've done. And the guys have, went on to do some other awesome things in their own lanes and real estate and mixing records and some production and different things. Music. I've felt kind of drawn towards other things in music and building some things creatively throughout this season, and just have had a blast doing that. And spent a lot of time working on some really fun songs with some really great bands. So kind of been doing a lot of those things and just enjoying family, man.
So in 2023, the band announces the return from hiatus. You guys re-record a version of the album, The End Is Where We Begin, and there's collaborations with different artists on this. Then in 2024, you release the singles Unparalyzed with Caleb Hiles and the song Euphoria. How has the response been on those two new songs? I know that at least Euphoria went to number one for several weeks.
Yeah. So those weren't, I guess, just to be clear, those weren't Thousand Foot Krutch songs. They were, but yeah, they were basic. Neil from Three Days Grace and Howard Benson have a record label called Judge and Jury, and so I had been doing some work with them and for them, and we did a deal where I would work on three songs kind of on a songwriting level and feature, just 'cause they have some great artists and we were excited to work together. So that those two were part of that. Caleb Hiles was I met through that situation, and incredibly talented guy, and had a lot of fun with him on Unparalyzed. And then Euphoria, they wanted to do original music as Judge and Jury. And so that was the first one that I was honored to be a part of with them on that was Euphoria. And Neil and I and Lucas Rossi wrote that one.
Nice.
And yeah, super cool, man. The response was it was amazing. It was really exciting to see. It's been a minute, and I wanted to kind of help get certain things set up for when I release this new music, and that they've been really helpful with that. So it's been cool, man. It's been awesome to reconnect with people, and thanks for checking it out. Anybody who has.
So we've made it all the way up to 2025. And I have a fan question. This is from Jen Snell. Her question is,
Oh, Jen.
can fans expect a new TFK album in the future? And will you be adding a stop in Ottawa on your next tour? So that question about is there any new TFK music and will there be any shows in the future? That's 90% of the questions that I received. So now we have a platform. You can share as much or as little as you'd like about what fans can expect moving forward.
Yeah, no, thank you for asking, man. And this is like literally the first time I've talked about this anywhere. So thank you. Yeah, man, I'm so excited. Basically, they're in this last season. I wrote about a bunch of situations in my life and things I was going through, just kind of real time, and then was able to sort of sing the songs while feeling that thing, and well, whether it was a struggle or a great thing. The ups and downs of this season. And yeah, wrote a bunch of songs about this, and it was really just it was for me. And about halfway through it, I felt like it was something I was supposed to release, and so it has become what would be the new TFK record. It would be same songwriter, same voice and guitarist, and I just yeah these songs to me it's a very personal record, and I think it's the best stuff I've ever been able to be a part of, man. I'm really excited about it. And it's something in my heart just, didn't feel right about trying to release it as TFK. And so I know on a business level that makes a ton of sense. But it just, yeah, that wasn't what felt right to me. So it's going to be released from now on. All the music that I release is going to be released under T-Rock, and like TEERAWK. And so yeah, check out as far as like stay tuned, and all new info on all of that stuff will be on all the socials. And so yeah, check out the socials for T-Rock, and sort of stay tuned on those, man. But I'm so pumped to start wheeling out this new music, and it would be what I would see as the new TFK record. It's been really exciting, man. I can't wait for you guys to hear it.
And you started a new label and publishing company to release the music?
Yeah, that's still in the works as we speak. So I can't say too much about that, but it's been an exciting trip, man, and lots of new music to come. It's been something I've been trying to. It's been a crazy journey that I'll talk a lot more about when the record drops. But there's been lots of reasons why I haven't been able to release it up till this point, and that's been out of my hands. So I'm excited to, yeah, finally get to start rolling some of this stuff out and just reconnecting with everyone, man.
And you feel like you've taken everything you've learned since 1995 and you've been able to put together what you believe is your best album yet.
Yeah, it really, man, it's been such a cool way to have the time again to just pour into something, and in the way that this has come together. And yeah, man, it's my favorite album that I've ever been a part of, man. And I can't wait to see what you guys think. Hopefully you dig it.
Are you able to share the name of the album or is that too soon?
Yeah, I don't mind. Sure. It's the album's going to be called The Sound of Awakening. And it really is just the story of this season. And most times, uh, with albums with TFK or Static, it's like most times with bands, you work on these songs, kind of choose the record together, and then go into the studio and knock them all out at once. And this way, I was able to write about these things real time. Just was super therapeutic for me to do, and it was something I needed to do anyways for me. And then I got to, for the first time, they'll record vocals for that stuff like in the moments that I was in it, and so that was really special to me. And it was just, yeah, it's been an awesome experience, man. I'm super, super jacked about this new music.
So I got to hear three of the new songs. They're gonna get the people going. And there's a special guest on one of the songs. Do you want to share that with our listeners?
Yeah, man. Yeah, there's going to be a few. And Adam Gauthier, yeah, but who we've spoken about. Just, again, one of my just absolute favorite voices in modern rock. And a good friend. Yeah, he was gracious enough to hop on one, and I'm so stoked about it, dude. It's been really fun. There's a fresh take on things and on this record, and yeah, I can't tell you too much about it, but I think one thing with TFK we never really did was collabs. And it wasn't even intentional. It just wasn't something we really did. And so I'm excited just musically to be able to just kind of do lots of collabs coming up with lots of different friends and just really have fun making music, man.